Next question. Nukikun, speaking of shaders, how does intersection material work? Is it particularly heavy to calculate, or does something simplify or accelerate it? It's actually simple math. Like, it's very efficient to compute. Like, I can actually even draw it maybe. How do you typically do like intersection? So when you are rendering something, do I have a nicer material, something brighter? Can you see this easily? Does this show on the camera well? Maybe I want my glowing one. How about this one?
I can punch in the FOV a little bit, maybe.
Hold on, that's another thing. Actually, hold on. Let me do this. I'm gonna switch it to manual. I set it up like for this board, and we haven't drawn anything the whole time. It's it's ironic, isn't it?
Yes.
Anyway, so if you're doing like intersection, like, you know, there's an easy, like essentially when you think about it, you know, when the shader runs, it's just, you know, it's rendering pixels on your screen. So say you have like, you know, we have some kind of object. I don't know what this is. It's some kind of blob. You have an object, and, you know, it's composed out of like, you know, lots of tiny pixels. So what your GPU is doing as it's kind of rendering, it's kind of, you know, it's going to be computing the individual pixels on the screen. So you have something called a fragment shader, and fragment shader that's literally invoked for every single pixel on the screen that the object covers. So there's going to be like a function, you know, your fragment shader that gets called, and then you compute, you know, the color of the pixel, or you can tell the GPU discard this pixel, which means, you know, that pixel actually it's not gonna render out. It's just gonna be skipped. Usually, like the way like you could do like intersections is you literally have like, you know, the intersection parameterized, for example, by a point. So there's a point in space, and there's like a normal, which defines a plane, like an infinite plane, you know, that kind of goes this way. So when you're computing your pixel, what do you do? Like oftentimes, like in the shader, is like, say you consider pixel here, and you want everything that's on this side of the plane to be cut, and everything that's on this side of the plane, you know, to be to essentially be visible. You know, you don't want like any changes to it. So you take the pixel, and as part of the fragment invocation, you have its position. So you have, you know, it's like X, Y, Z, and technically there's like a W, but let's just say X, Y, Z position. And we can actually ignore the Z because like this is already aligned to screen space, so let's just, you know, worry about the X, Y. Actually, no, you need to kind of worry about X, Y, Z. But for this purpose, we don't have to, you know, it's kind of the same principle. So it has, you know, X, Y coordinate. What do? You literally take this plane. The easiest way to think about it is you align each point, each pixel that you're rendering, you just align it to the plane, so like, you know, it's upwards. So like if you look at this whole thing from the perspective of the plane, you know, you have this point, you have this normal, and this pixel, if you were to like, you know, rotate it like this, the pixel's here. So I'm gonna move this here, and the pixel's like right here. And this is actual calculation you can make, where you recalculate the XY position of the point so it's aligned with the plane. And the way you do that is usually you subtract, well, you first rotate it. So like, you know, it's facing upwards. For that, you can use like a matrix calculation where, you know, we have the plane, you have like, say this is the other axis, and you compute a rotation matrix that essentially rotates this whole thing so this is upwards. And you also offset it by the center. And that way you end up with an XY coordinate where, oh, where'd my brush go? You end up with an XY coordinate where this is like, you know, the origin. This is like 0, 0, instead of being, you know, an arbitrary position. And then the position of the pixel is gonna be, say like this is, you know, say this is 2 and -2. And maybe you have, another pixel that's over here. There's another pixel over here. So once you do the rotation matrix, subtract the position, subtract like the center of it, this pixel ends up with coordinate that's 2 and plus 2. And then you have a very simple logic where you just ask, is the y coordinate, is it above 0? If it is, discard the pixel, don't render it, which means this pixel gets discarded, and this pixel doesn't, because it's negative. And that's all math there is. Very simple math, very easy to do, like, intersection this way. You can also do some additional effects, because one of the things you can do with intersect shader is, at the intersection, you can make it so, like, for example, this glows. And literally the way that works is you say, you essentially interpolate the position. So for example, from between 0 and say -6, you're just gonna, interpolate the color. So like, this would be 0 intensity, this would map to 0 intensity, and this would be 1 maximum intensity, and you map this to a color, and you have your glow that's aligned with the plane. So intersection, very easy. Where it gets complicated is like if you wanted the intersection to close holes, and that's its own whole thing where it gets really complicated, because now you have to like figure out complex geometry, because you essentially end up like with a hole here, and you have to figure out like where the hole should be closed, and then you probably have to use something like a compute shader or something. But for intersection itself, the way it is here, very simple, very light. Like there's like GPUs can do this, like like nothing. It's peanuts to them. There we go, and I got at least one drawing in this episode.